It's not about if God is with you or against you. The question should be, are you with God? When he speaks, I want to hear it. And when I hear it, I want to respond. Speak, Lord. Your servant is listening. What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the Stand Up, Stand Out podcast. I am your host, Joshua Warren, and I am super excited to be with you guys for another week, another episode 15. Guys, we are only 5 episodes away from that 20 episode benchmark that I originally set out at the beginning of the podcast. 20 episodes will put us in the top 1% of all podcasts of all time, and we are only 5 weeks away from that. So stick with me. You guys have been awesome. Thank you for everyone who's been checking in, who's been tuning in, who's been taking the time to watch. I appreciate all of you guys, and I pray, as always, that this episode will just bless you and that hopefully you'll get something out of it and just be encouraged by my sharing. So this week, guys, I'm going to kind of just I did want to give a quick update. I wanted to give a quick update from last week's episode. If you guys checked that out, I talked about how the Lord just kind of randomly blessed this one reel that I put up on Facebook, and it started to catch a lot of attention, and it was kind of growing. And so I made a whole podcast kind of addressing the comment section of that video to just answer some people's questions and to share some of my opinions, as well as some biblical truth about prayer and hearing God's voice and hearing from him. And so I just wanted to tell you guys first, thank you to everyone who prayed that the podcast episode would reach the people who were asking questions. I actually went into the Reels comment section and posted the video, and then I actually directly responded to a couple of people's comments who had asked questions and just said, hey, if you're seeking answers, here's a video that may help. I had a few people respond back that they took the time to listen to it and that it actually did answer their question. I had a few people respond kind of aggressively. But overall, I think it was a blessing. I think the Lord answered prayer, that he used it in a mighty way. And the video is still growing, guys. The reel on Facebook is almost up to 400,000 views, which is bananas that the Lord would do that. But he's continuing to use it. So with that, I would just want to ask all of you to continue to pray. Not that the Lord would bless my podcast or that it would bring any sort of following, but that the Lord would bless those who hear that message, that it would be helpful to them, and that if there are people who have questions and who are seeking real answers, that they would find that podcast episode and that would maybe be able to help them or provide some direction or some answers that they've been looking for. So you can just join me in praying for that this week. But moving on into this week. So this week, the Lord brought me to this passage that I'm going to talk about with you tonight very randomly. So I'm doing the chronological read-through, which I've discussed on this channel before. I'm also doing my own quiet time study, as I always do. I'm also preaching a series right now out of the book of Colossians, so I'm reading in Colossians. And then I actually started another Bible app devotional plan for just myself, just dealing with some stuff that I've been dealing with. And this verse isn't from any of those things. So it's kind of funny about this passage was my wife and I actually were watching the House of David series, just kind of checking it out. It's only one season deep so far. And in one of the episodes, they referenced this Bible story. And I was like, I I've read the entire book and I don't remember this story. And so part of me was like, already as we were watching the show, I'm like, I want to go back and read that. And then the next day, my wife sent me a sermon from Pastor Josh McPherson. He's the lead pastor of Grace City Church up in Wenatchee, Washington. My wife and I both listen to a lot of his content. Him and his wife actually do a podcast together on marriage. That's phenomenal. So I would highly encourage you to go check him out and check out his podcast as well as his church services and stuff. Seems like a really, really solid dude and brother in Christ. And she sent me this sermon from him that he just preached. And he brought up the exact same story. And so when he did, I was like, all right, I got to go look this up. And so I did. I went and I read it and I got all this stuff out of it. And then I got home and I was like, babe, I just wanted to share like this stuff that I got. I went and read this passage, and she turned immediately to me and she was like, I went and read it too. She goes, I was thinking the same thing. Like we heard it in the TV show and then we heard it in the sermon, and I just felt like we needed to go read it. So her and I just got to chop up what we saw through this passage. And so, it was really cool. It was really good. And I think it was exactly what my soul needed this week, as far as just hearing from the Lord. And so I wanted to share it with you guys in hopes that it encourages you. And so the passage is Joshua 5, verses 13 through 15. So to give a little bit of context, this is right before Joshua leads the Israelites to conquer Jericho, when they're going to march around the city. They're going to shout on the seventh day. The walls are going to fall down. They're going to take the city, all that stuff. They've already scouted out the city. They've sent spies in to check the city out, to see what's going on, all that other stuff. And then the Lord comes to Joshua and tells him, hey, you guys need to consecrate yourselves. You need to sanctify yourself, cleanse yourself, separate yourself from the rest of the world to mark yourself as my people. And so they've done that. And then there's just these couple of verses. I mean, 3 verses really, 13 through 15. And it's a fascinating story. And I got some really, really cool things out of it I just wanted to share. So picking up in verse 13, I'm just going to read the whole thing and then I'll kind of go through it. But it says, now it came about when Joshua was by Jericho that he lifted up his eyes and looked, and behold, a man was standing opposite of him with his sword drawn in his hand. And Joshua went to him and said to him, are you for us or for our adversaries? He, meaning the man, said, no, rather I indeed come now as captain of the host of the Lord. And Joshua fell on his face to the earth and bowed down and said to him, what has my Lord to say to his servant? The captain of the Lord's host said to Joshua, remove your sandals from your feet, for the place where you are standing is holy. And Joshua did so. So we get this interaction, and right after this, the Lord, and I believe this man who I believe is actually Jesus. It's him incarnate as man before the New Testament story, but I'll dive into that in a second. He ends up giving Joshua the instructions for how to break down the walls of Jericho. The marching around, no one says a word, lead with the ark, all the instructions. But we just get these couple of verses, and I just gleaned some really, really cool things from just this small passage. So the first thing is, you see that Joshua is by Jericho, so he's by an enemy land, an enemy territory that they're preparing to go in and try and conquer. And it says he lifts up his eyes and he sees a man who's standing opposite of him with his sword drawn. And so Joshua, just being a good leader, wants to assess, hey, is this man a threat or a friend? And so he goes up and says, hey, are you for us or for our adversaries? He's purely just trying to assess the situation, friend or foe, right? That's all Joshua's doing. But the man, quote unquote, responds rather interestingly. He says, no. That's how he starts off his response. No. Rather, I indeed come now as captain of the hosts of the Lord. And then Joshua falls to his face and bows down to him. So that response of no, he doesn't say, well, I'm with God and God's with you, so I'm with you guys. He's telling Joshua, you're asking the wrong question here. It's not about if God is with you or against you. The question should be, are you with God? And so it's just that framework of oftentimes we, for myself, I can ask that same question. Well, is God with me in this? Is he going to be with me on this journey or on this thing that, I'm going to go do? And the question that we get from Scripture is that's not the right question. The question should be, are we with him? Because the reality is, A, he's always with us. He's present in all places at all times. Always has been, always will be. But oftentimes, when it comes to the way that we walk out our faith, it's not like we're sprinting ahead of God and his plans, and then he's having to play catch up. It's like I went to a youth retreat a couple of weekends ago, and I'll be honest, man, I was feeling my age. All these teenage guys, every time there was a second of downtime, they're like running to go play this sport or play this sport and play this sport. And I was like having to play catch up. They were having to wait on me. And I'm like, guys, slow down. Like, I need a second. I need to catch my breath. The truth of the matter is, most of the time spiritually, that is not our scenario with God. It's not, hey, is he with me yet? Has he caught up? I'm busy out here doing his work. Has he caught up? Most of the time, it's the complete opposite. God is speaking to us and urging us and, hey, I want you to go here. I want you to do this thing. And we're like, are you sure though? Like, what? Well, hold on. Like, let me lay out this fleece, and then let me lay out this fleece, and then let me lay out this fleece, and let me hold off on here until I really, really know. And I need this signal, and I need this signal. And God's way ahead of us going, come on, please just let's go. And so the question shouldn't be, is God with us? Most of the time the question needs to be, are we with God? Because he can speak to us over and over and over again, and yet we just refuse to listen. We hesitate. We are slow to obedience, man. We want to be so sure. And he's like, where's your faith? You should be more concerned about whether or not you are with me than anything. Like, keep up. Like, yes, we don't want to try and run ahead of God to just make decisions without ever consulting him. But most of the time, we are too cautious in the other direction of that scenario. At least I am. Maybe you guys don't deal with that. Maybe you're on the other side of that spectrum and you're always trying to outrun God and you're not consulting him or asking him for direction. But I know for me, I am far too often guilty of being slow to obedience than overly ambitious in obedience. And so I just love that point that Josh is like, are you with us or are you against us? And the dude, the man is like, no. Just flat out no. Like, wrong question, try again. Do not pass go, do not collect $200. He's like, the question should be, are you with me? The reason that I believe that this man is not an angel, which it could be based on the wording, right? I'm a captain of the host of the Lord. So you kind of think of like Gabriel or Michael or an angel of like high stature. The only reason that I actually believe that this man is Jesus in the flesh, presenting himself as man, even in the Old Testament before he comes to earth in the New Testament, is because of the fact that Joshua falls down to his face and he bows down to him. And this is very much a worship posture, that you don't see in Scripture for angelic beings. And outside of fallen angels, there are no angels that require or call for worship of themselves. And so for that reason, I do believe that this man, quote unquote, that Joshua is face to face with is actually Jesus. But I could get to heaven and be told I was wrong on that prediction, and it's not going to hurt my feelings. And so you can come up with your own opinion. But for that reason alone, the fact that he falls down, bows down to him, just makes me seem to think that this is more of God in the flesh and less of just not another angelic being, but an angelic being nonetheless. So anyways, Joshua is asking the wrong question. And then the other thing that I had two other things that I loved about these couple verses. And the first one is that Joshua bows down. He falls to his face and bows down before this man. And what you have to recognize is that position of bowing down is a position of surrender. If Joshua was to go to war with this man, if Joshua ended up on his knees, face to the earth, bowing down before him, that is a posture of submission. It's a posture of surrender. It's the posture of someone who has been conquered. And so what I love about this posture from Joshua is that you recognize that before Joshua can go and conquer the other lands, he has to first be conquered by a good and holy God. That he has to surrender himself. That he has to submit himself to God before he can go and get any of these other nations and these empires and these cities to submit or surrender to him. And I just love this point because I think oftentimes, at least for me as a man, I want to go out there, I want to slay dragons. For the kingdom, I want to go out there, I want to conquer some stuff. I want to achieve some things. And I just love that point of before any of that is possible, you must first be conquered. You must first surrender. You must first submit. That you have to give it to him before you can go out and achieve what you're hoping for, and before you can go out and slay the dragons. I loved that picture from Joshua. And then the last big key point was just Joshua's response. What has my Lord to say to his servant? Another way to put this, speak, Lord, your servant is listening. And that sentence right there is probably the biggest thing that hit home for me this week, because that is very much where I feel like I am right now in my own life. And I just didn't know how to put it in words. And that's really it. Speak, Lord, your servant is listening. That is such a great posture to take before God. To really just have that willingness, that desire to hear, and that heart attitude of speak so that I may act on it. so that I may be quick to obedience. I love that from Joshua, and that is exactly what I needed this week. And then one other thing that kind of, to me, points to this man also being Jesus, I should have pointed out, is that it says, the captain of the Lord's host said to Joshua, remove your sandals from your feet, for the place where you're standing is holy. And you got to remember, Joshua was a kind of a disciple or a mentee of Moses. And so you know for a fact he heard more than once the story of Moses and the burning bush. And so in this moment, as this host is telling Joshua, remove your sandals, for you're standing on holy ground, Joshua had to immediately recognize that this is the same voice that came out of the bush, that called to his mentor, to his leader Moses, and said, remove your sandals, for you're standing on holy ground. And so this is the other reason that I do think that this host, this man, quote unquote, is God in the flesh. But a couple of application points for me this week in this passage, and I just wanted to share, and I already did a little bit, but was, instead of asking if God is with me, I need to be asking if I'm with God. If I'm where he wants me, if I'm doing what he's called me to, am I being obedient to the call? And that was something I really just had to sit and reflect on this week, is like, am I being obedient to his call? Am I with him? Or is he like way ahead of me going, come on, dude, come on, please, like, hurry up, let's go. And I'm like, hold on, I gotta lay out like one more fleece, wait, one more fleece, wait, one more fleece. And just, I'm like baby stepping my way towards him. And he's just sitting, 1,000 yards in front of me, just like, you can do it. Come on. I promise you, I got this. Like, let's go. Because I think that's often where I can be, if I'm being super honest. And delayed obedience is disobedience. It's something one of my mentors taught me. And so I just need to be better about that. One of the things that Pastor Josh McPherson shared in his sermon that he actually got from another pastor, I think it was Pastor Russell Johnson. I can't remember his name, but he said, how come is it that every time God speaks, we need 1,000 confirmations before we act on it? And yet the second that Satan whispers in our ear, we are willing to follow right along. And I thought that was a great point. That oftentimes when God's calling us to something, when we feel God urging us in a certain direction or calling us to a step in faith, we want so much confirmation, we want so much reassurance. And yet Satan comes along and is like, hey, you should do this, or hey, you should do that. And we're just immediately like, yeah, I'm in. That sounds great. And it's because most of the time what Satan's whispering for us to do is stuff that would be pleasing to our flesh. It's stuff that's easy. It's stuff that's comfortable. It's stuff that gives us what we want. And oftentimes what God's calling us to is stuff that's scary, stuff that's unsure, stuff that's uncomfortable, stuff that's new. And I want to work on flipping those responses, of being better about constantly being quick to respond to the Lord and way slower at responding or guarding against the voice of the enemy. And then the next application point I put down was just before I go out and seek to accomplish things, I need to first make sure that I'm completely surrendered to Christ. It is through him that I do all things, not for him. And so that just really hit me this week that, this false idea that like we're going to go out and slay the dragons on Christ's behalf, that we're going to go out and do these things for him. And it's like, no, he's already done all the things. It's through him that we get to partake in the work. In fact, I hadn't planned on sharing this, which is why I didn't have it in my notes here, but I had this quote from one of my devotionals this week that I thought was just perfect. It spoke to this so eloquently. It says, your spiritual position is more important than your physical condition. When we forget our seat, we start striving for what's already ours. We chase blessing instead of receiving it. We fight for identity instead of living from it. We search for peace when peace is already ours. The gospel doesn't begin with a command, it begins with a position. So let this truth wake up something inside you this week. You are not striving toward victory, you are seated in it. And I just think that was perfect. That so often we can become so focused on we need to go out and we need to get the victory. And you're not striving for victory. You're already seated in the victory. Victory's already been delivered at his hand. You don't need to go out to seek some form of identity. He's already given you an identity. Live from it. You don't need to go out to receive blessing. You've already received it. So live from it. And it's like we so often get that call wrong. We get it backwards. And so I love that point. That we just need to be conquered by him. We need to surrender and submit to him, and then recognize that from there, everything that we go out and do and everything we seek to accomplish and everything that we seek to take on, we don't take on for him, we take on through him. That it is by his power that anything would get done, that anything would get accomplished, that any battles or victories would be had. It's because he's already delivered them into our hand. And I just love that point this week. And then the last point of speak, Lord, your servant is listening. But this is just the mentality that I'm really trying to have, that I'm just going to be ready to move when he says to respond to him without hesitancy or doubt. When he speaks, I want to hear it. And when I hear it, I want to respond. The truth is, I'm in a season right now where I am desperate to hear his voice. And I am pretty sure that when he does speak, it's going to be to do something that to most people seems risky or irrational or, everyone's going to be pulling out calculators because nothing's going to add up, basically. I think the next call in my life is going to be a call of great, great faith. That it's going to be walking the tightrope without a safety net type of call. And I want to go. I want to hear him when he calls. So I actually wanted to end this episode in a very different fashion than I have previously. I've honestly been feeling this kind of angst, this whatever this is, for like months now. And I just haven't shared it here before because A, it was going to sound crazy. B, I wasn't really sure how to put it into words. And so this week, as I read these verses, it just helped clarify some things. And honestly, the words from that other study I'm doing also help clarify some things. And so, as much as I love just getting up here and speaking, and I'm definitely a talker, I actually really prefer to write. Writing for me is very therapeutic. It helps me to kind of filter my thoughts a little bit. And so I wrote this super short essay, and I just wanted to share it with you guys, to just share what I've been feeling, kind of where I'm at, but also hope that it blesses you guys or it speaks to some of you. And so I called this essay The Starting Gate. It says, have you ever felt completely consumed by a feeling of anxiety? Not based in fear, but based in urgency. Like a horse in the starting gate, panicked and antsy, not because it fears the race ahead, but out of an all-consuming desire to run. So my soul has felt lately, restless, without peace, anxious. Everything in my spirit screams at me to run, yet the doors remain shut. But even as my heart leaps in anticipation, my mind is clear. All of my attention, my focus, locked in. Peace washes over me. My breathing and heart rate seem to synchronize as my ears await the sound of the starting gun shot to ring out. Knowing that the second the sound makes its way to me, the doors will open and it'll be time to run. But run where and for what purpose? The truth is, I have no idea what awaits me on the other side of the gate. I do not know how long I will run or what the outcome will be. What I do know is that I'm called to run. The one who leads me knows where to go and when, and for that reason I am only responsible to respond to his commands, quickly and without hesitation. He is with me here in the starting gate, calming, reassuring, but equally eager to race. Peace washes over me as he speaks to my spirit. The truth is, once the race starts, it'll become harder and harder to hear his voice. It can be easily drowned out by the noise that will surround me. His peace can be replaced by the stress and the pain of the race ahead. The movement and chaos of the race can make me numb to his presence. I may even make the mistake of forgetting that he is with me and that it is he, not I, that is in control. In recognition of this, my spirit's attitude starts to change inside the gate. My soul settles as I stop to appreciate the warmth of his presence. My heart rate slows as his peace overrides my nerves. And my ears forget about the starting gun and are solely focused on his voice. I cherish this moment. And although my call is still to run, I finally appreciate the starting gate. And that's just where I got this week. I feel like I'm called to run. I feel like I'm in my starting gate. But I got to a place this week where I just realized where I need to be in that gate is not anxious and anxiety ridden. I need to be like Joshua. That Joshua. Of just face down. Bowed, surrendered. Saying, speak, Lord. Your servant is listening. So that when he speaks, when the gates finally open, I can run well. And that brought me a lot of peace. Do I still feel a little anxious about the run? Sure. Am I excited for the run? Absolutely. But am I learning to cherish this moment before the run starts 100%. And just making sure that I am positioned and that I'm prepared so that when the gates open, I can go. And so I just wanted to share that with you guys this week. I pray that this blesses you. I pray that you can get something out of it. That maybe you needed to reflect on this same message. Maybe this is stuff you've already figured out, in which case I pray it's just a great reminder. Maybe you're like me and you just have felt like you're in the gate. Take peace in that. Cherish the moment. Because soon the doors will open and everything will change. And so guys, I appreciate you being here. Week after week, I appreciate those of you that check in, that take the time to listen, to share and support. You guys mean everything to me. And even if this podcast is not the race he has me running, that's totally fine. I'm just going to continue on in hopes that it blesses people and it helps people and it meets people where they are. And yeah, thanks guys. I hope you have a fantastic week, and I hope that you do not forget to stand up and stand out for Christ, okay? I'll catch you guys next week. Peace. Hey guys, thank you for checking out another episode of the Stand Up, Stand Out podcast. I would just like to encourage all of you to like, share, and subscribe to the YouTube channel. If you are on social media, I am on all platforms at the SUSO Podcast. That's the SUSO Podcast. You can find me everywhere, so go drop me a follow. And lastly, if you're here and you want to know why I started this podcast and kind of the mission behind it, I would encourage you to check out this episode right here. And if you want to know what it means to stand up and stand out for Christ, I would encourage you to check out this video right here. Outside of that, guys, I hope you have a great week, and I'll see you next episode. Peace.